What's going on, guys? It's Bromley Empire Barbell, and today we're going to go over some deadlift positioning cues. So I did a video a few videos back, I'll go ahead and link to it, where I compared the pulling styles of powerlifters and strongmen. Now obviously there's a lot of people that pull a lot of different ways, but there's some unique trends you tend to see that really separate the two. And I tended to bias towards the strongman setup. I mean, one, because I compete in strongman more than anything else, but two, strongmen are legitimately the best deadlifters in the world. There's no argument for that. So to summarize, basically we found that strongmen tend to rock back a little bit more, stay a little bit more upright, hips tend to sink back, shins are a little bit more vertical. And the conclusion I came to is that you see that mainly because strongmen have to engage in not just 1 rep max feats, but also in deadlifts for reps. And that when you're having really, really heavy deadlifts for reps, the way you're gonna last is the way that prevents your weakest link from really determining when you fail. So the erectors, the muscles that run down the length of your spine, they're a lot weaker on their own than, say, the muscles of your hips, the muscles of your thighs that actually move the weight. Remember, everything above the waist stabilizes the spine, everything below the waist actually moves the barbell. So when you have a setup that a lot of powerlifters do, think of like a Konstantinov's, where the upper back is rounded, the knees are a little forward, the hips start a little closer to the bar, the knee and hip angle starts a little bit more open, which is a big advantage on a 1 rep max. This actually puts a lot more strain on the erectors. And considering the best conventional deadlifts in powerlifting run between 800 to like the low mid 900 range, in strongman, at the top level, the deadlift for reps are routinely in the mid 800 pounds. In fact, Core Sports just did a world record breaker where they had Trey Mitchell and Rano Heinle and Jerry Pritchett all try their hand at an 880 deadlift, a 400 kilogram deadlift for reps. Rano Heinle is one of the best deadlifters in the world right now. He did 6 reps at 880, which is insane. But you tend to see more of a hips back, a little bit more upright. Everything is more aligned in the spine. And it seems to be that the main reason for that is that it prevents the erectors from taking the brunt. All of the stabilizers, the erectors, the abdominals, the midsection, the muscles of the upper back, they tend to coordinate better and they tend to last longer when the spine is aligned and you're a little bit more upright, as opposed to if you're pitch forward or if you have a round in the upper back. So that seems to be why you see that trend. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule. Now, I'm gonna post my videos of my deadlift because I have, in the last few months, transitioned from one to the other. Main reason being that I'm getting ready for Strongman Corp Nationals. It's in a few weeks, and there is a max deadlift, which is absolutely unheard of at a Nationals. It tends to be that they select events that are easier to get through, and max events take forever. But I am very specialized towards deadlifting this way. Again, primarily because I compete in strongman and it made reps a lot easier, but also because I have a history of lower back injuries from not taking bracing work seriously, not really being aware of my positioning. So I really bias towards this. So I'll start with my, a few months ago, or I think last month sometime, I did a 605 for 10. I did it in this setup. I did it with straps. I did pause in between each rep. But you'll notice that I tend to start with my shins a little more vertical. I get a big leg drive at the start, but my back stays a bit more vertical. My chest is a little bit more open. My spine stays more aligned. So it gives me the confidence to keep my lower back rigid and in proper position while I get through the reps. And then it's easy to set up at the top, reset, and then track my hips back into the bottom. So it's a lot more comfortable and it seems to be a lot more efficient. Now I'm very biased towards repetitions. I would say I'm specialized. So 75% typically correlates, 75% of a 1 rep max typically correlates to about a 10 rep max. Obviously it's different for individuals and it's different across different lifts, but that's kind of a ballpark. 605 for 10 would put me at or above an 800 pound deadlift. Now obviously I'm not an 800 pound deadlifter, not even close. But in evaluating why I'm so good at reps in relation to a 1 rep max, I figured in this short period prepping in the Nationals that I could kind of evaluate why I do better at one than the other and see if I could make some adjustments. So what I ended up doing is gambling over the last couple of weeks, tweaking my form and seeing if I had more room to make up in going for a 1 rep max. And it was a big gamble because not only is it a new setup, which is not really advisable in the preparation period, the last few weeks going into a meet, you want to, play how you practice. Again, this also exploits, it also puts a lot of pressure on the erectors and a lot more strain on the lower back. So that was exploiting a soft spot for me anyways. What I decided is that if I could get a little more give in my back, start with my hips up and forward a little more, I might be able to get more leg drive. That's really where I was struggling here and why my heavier attempts feel so bad. I haven't been able to squat because of patellar tendonitis, so my leg drive is a lot worse than it usually is. That's not a problem with 70 to 80% for reps. That is a problem when I'm going for a 1 rep max. So what I did was I did a lot of practice sets. I ditched the straps, that was a big one. And what I found is that if I could pick my hands up, take a deep breath, fill my lungs up, and then brace, and then get to the bar, I found that I was much, much, much tighter in my midsection. That gave me a lot of confidence in my lower back, keep my lower back healthy for these attempts. And I also found that it absolutely eliminated the hesitation that comes with getting your straps in, having all that time to hesitate and to doubt yourself and to lose that feeling of tightness. When you get your straps in, you can find yourself being really finicky and playing around with your position too much. At this point in the game, when you're going for a true max effort pull, you got to get your hands on the bar and go. Now, if your technique isn't dialed in, I don't recommend that. But if you are consistent and you're strong in all the right areas, that's how you're going to move the most weight, and that's what I had to do. So this is a video of the Nationals run up. It's set weight, so they go in 30-pound increments, 615, 645, 675, 705, all the way up well into the 800s. I know all the good pullers at Nationals. There's some very, very good pullers. When I started, 700 pounds would win. Now there's a couple of guys well into the 8s. So I figure if I can clear out a 735, that would be an all-time PR, that I would be in a very, very good spot with only 6 or 7 guys probably placing ahead of me. That's a reach. It's more weight than I've ever done, and I'm only going to do it if I do my prep right, if this technique actually dials in the way for me that I think it will, and if I'm healthy. And that was a big one, trying this out without causing any other issues. So I went through the run-up, and I'll show I did my 615. It moved very quick. My 645 moved very well. 675 is where things start to get a little sticky for me, especially if I'm not dialed in. There's times where I might miss a 675 because of confidence. I don't want to risk pulling something. 675 moved exceptionally well, so I went for a confidence rep at 705, and I was just completely thrilled with how it moved. So for me personally, this was a very good move. My gamble paid off. I'm very confident I'm going to have a 735 the day of, but of course it's the last event. It's on day 2. On the one hand, I'll be fatigued from the weekend of competing. On the other hand, you get contest adrenaline. And because it's the last event, I don't have to really worry about pacing myself for the others. If it was the first event, the worst thing you can do is go for a big pull and tweak something. But it's the last event, so I can kind of lay it all out there. So I'm really feeling good about how that's going to go. So we can talk a little bit about some more of the differences. First of all, I want to point out what these pulling styles have in common. That's a big one because you don't change everything. This is not a pass to just round forward because that's what you naturally do anyways. We are looking, this right here, again, think of Konstantinov's. This is a prototype of somebody who has a very thick midsection, very strong erectors, and a very strong upper back. Because again, these pieces have to be stronger to demonstrate maximal pulls with integrity and with this setup than this series of stabilizers theoretically does to move the same weight. And again, that's why we bias that for reps, because it's more efficient. So think of Konstantinov's, how thick he was, how big he was in his upper back, and his abdominals looked like you could shoot him in the gut with a cannonball and he would have been absolutely fine. So most of you aren't going to fall into this category. It takes a while to dial this in. So if you do try to pull this way, have somebody watch you, somebody who's going to give you honest feedback, not somebody who's just going to jerk you off and tell you how easy it is. Videotape yourself, do practice warm-ups in the mirror. The big thing here is that this does not give. Notice that this is flush. Injuries aren't typically associated with rounding in the upper back. The upper back can move that way under a good amount of weight, provided you're maintaining position. The lower back is where you got to worry about, and that's where abdominal bracing. I'll put the videos up for my playlist for all of the bracing videos I've done. I've done a lot of them. And again, the only reason I got away with this is because I spent the last few years really getting my bracing down. But make sure that lower back doesn't give. Also, make sure that as the weight climbs, you're not bending more as the bar goes up. You want the curve at the start to be pretty much the curve throughout the entire pull. If you're actively giving as the bar goes up, that's a sign that you're weak somewhere. You will pay for that down the road, I promise you. Now, the big thing here, shoulders forward. Notice the reach. That's one of the cues, especially I got short arms. If I stand upright, the bar locks out right around my waistline, okay? By letting my shoulders hang, I get a couple extra inches. And for me, that's a huge leverage advantage that I need. I mean, people joke my arms are short, pressing is a breeze for me, but deadlifts have always been a bear. In fact, picking anything up off the ground kind of sucks. So that little bit of leverage advantage really helps level the playing field for me. Similarly, even when I set up back in this position, my shoulders are forward. So that's a big one. There's some people, and I've seen some tutorials where they recommend pulling the shoulders back. That is dumb. That is stupid. There's nobody who is a good elite deadlifter who actively does that. The upper back is not at risk. The only problem you run into is if the upper back is forward and you have a weak upper back, you can get a cascade effect where as you pull and that upper back starts to go, that everything else starts to go all the way down the chain. And that's what you want to avoid. But assuming that you're developing your stabilizers to the same degree you're developing your legs and hips, that should not be a problem. It typically not is a big problem unless you do have a glaring weakness. But this is a big cue that really helps a lot of people find their sweet spot. Reach, get down to the bar. Make sure that the give is in the upper back. Now, you want to get in this position. You don't want to just relax. You still have to brace. The lats right here, this is a big point of tension. I've heard people use different cues, squeezing the armpits. Imagine, somebody's trying to tickle you and you're clamping your arms down. That's one. I always think of the briefcase analogy. I'm trying to clamp my ribs down into my hips. So I think about the lats as pulling me down. They're working in concert with my abdominals to shorten this gap right here. Because if I can shorten that gap, that means everything's tight and braced. It means my spine's going to be rigid. So we're still thinking about a tight brace. You want all of this circumferential stability that comes with getting your abdominals locked in. So again, look at my bracing videos, look into the McGill 3, look at doing anti-rotation videos. It's not just about strong abdominals. You have to learn how to actually use them. Also be mindful, again, the upper back, the erectors have to be strong. For me, I started doing multiple times a week on off days GPP work that included reverse hyper, GHD back extensions, where I actually focus on kind of rounding and then extending at the top. A lot of Strongman event helps carry over with that. But what I found is each attempt I did, a lot of what I was missing was confidence right here. And with all the years of bracing, it only took a few workouts before I felt that I could give a little bit more than I thought I could. And that was a big win for me. That might not necessarily be the case for you. So the shoulders down, we're still bracing on both of these. Those are the same. They're both very much leg drives. I really like to cue pushing. And especially you're going to find with this setup that with the knee forward, you do get more push at the start. Now with this setup, it's easy to get pitched forward. And I noticed that on a couple of my warm-ups that I got so much leg drive, my ass came up, I wasn't ready and I had to pull the bar back. And that's a little more inefficient. And it also, again, puts a lot more strain on the lower backs. That worried me a little bit. So one of the things I cued is to get all of this musculature engaged and to keep it tight. As I drove through the bar and that bar got vertical distance, I thought about pulling back, almost as if I was trying to roll my shoulders back into the bar. So that gave me this simultaneous push to the ground, as well as recruiting my entire posterior to lever myself backwards. And it kept the right amount of tension. I found all of my other pulls went a lot better. I kept a lot more integrity in my back, in my spinal position. So I'll show again the 705 I did. Again, this is the first time I've pulled this weight without straps or a suit. So that's kind of a win for me. And it actually felt good. This is way more than I ever give on deadlifts when I'm training. And I think that's part of the reason that I was so good in this position is that I'm used to being more braced. So those muscles had time to get stronger and thicker and brace me a lot better. So notice as I'm pulling that my back stays in the same position. Notice that the bit of round, my lower back's flush, it stays flush. The rounding is mainly in my upper back and that it's pretty persistent. I don't round more as I pull, and that's a very, very important point. So long story short, the key to a good deadlift is brace hard and effectively and reach. Those are the two cues that have helped me out a lot. Of course, there are other things, and that's going to be different based on individual case. But as long as the lower back stays neutral, you're braced, as long as your upper back has the integrity to maintain that shoulder position, and as long as wherever you have your hips and knees, as long as that bar is close to your center of mass and you drive those legs through, that is going to lend itself, with years of practice, that is going to lend itself to a very big deadlift, and it's going to go a long way to keeping you injury free. So that's all I have today on the deadlift. Go ahead and check out the deadlift playlist. I have a ton of deadlift videos, a ton of bracing videos. I still revisit these topics every so often, but I have a whole library. So before asking me to update with new video topics, make sure that I haven't covered it, because I've covered a lot. Also, go ahead and take this to the forum. We got a lot of people active on the forum. It's free to enter, empire-forum.com. Go ahead and leave your comments and questions there, or leave it in the comment box. I'm sure there's going to be some. If you haven't already, guys, go ahead and click subscribe and click the notification bell. I put 2 to 3 videos up every single week. I revisit a lot of old topics. I bring up a lot of new topics as they come. I'm going to go ahead and update you guys very soon. Nationals 3 weeks away, October 4th. I'll update you guys the second it goes down and let you know if my strategy actually paid off the way I thought it will, or who knows, maybe I'll be in traction, snorting NSAIDs in order to keep myself healthy enough to fly home. I don't know. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, it's Bromley at Empire Barbell. I'll see you.